All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Heroes Connect Military to Manufacturing event. My name is Rachel Wolford, and I am the Director of Program Operations for the Heroes Make America program, and I will be moderating today's event. I'm so excited to have Textron Aviation with us today. They're here to share more about their company, the wide range of employment opportunities available, and to answer any questions that you may have. Events like this are designed to help you, our military affiliated job seekers, gain a better understanding of the manufacturing industry and build direct connections with employers who are actively hiring. Now, before we jump into today's event, let's review some quick housekeeping items. First, this event is being recorded and will be sent out as part of an event recap email. Please be sure that you stay muted throughout the presentation to minimize background noise. And lastly, although our mics are muted, I still encourage you to be an active participant. Utilize the chat feature during the presentation. Oh, my slides decided to jump ahead of me there. I used the chat feature during the presentation to drop in questions that you have, and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A portion. Overall, events like this are your opportunity to join the discussion and ask questions of these industry leaders who you may not normally have access to. Wow. So this time I'm going to ask you to go ahead and drop your locations in the chat, drop the types of roles you might be interested in. And while you're doing that, for those of you joining us today who may not be familiar with Heroes Make America, we are a DoD approved SkillBridge and Army Career Skills program that is open to transitioning service members, veterans, reservists, National Guard, and military spouses. We provide a variety of certification trainings equipping our students for rewarding careers in the manufacturing and supply chain industry. You can see here our program managers, the locations and virtual options we have, as well as all of our current training pathways that we offer, including manufacturing operations, logistics, industrial systems. I apologize. I don't know if you guys hear dogs barking in the background, but I will apologize for that. As well as airframe and power plant. We additionally offer welding and CNC machining training options in partnership with another training provider, Workshops for Warriors in California. We will drop our contact information into the chat so that you'll be able to connect with us if you do have any questions. And don't forget to tell your battle buddies if you think that this program may help them in their post-military career search. The last thing I want to mention in addition to our SkillBridge training offerings is that we also host a variety of other virtual events to include these weekly Heroes Connect events. And we also host in-person and virtual career fairs. So we're going to drop our upcoming events and registration links in the chat for you to check out. And you can see here the employers who are signed up as of today for our in-person career fair next month on March 12th at Fort Riley in Kansas. We will most likely have even more that register over the next few weeks, so be sure to mark your calendars if you're in the Kansas area. So let's move on to today's featured company, Textron Aviation, and I'm going to pass it over to John Buckley. John, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I recognize a few faces. I've been scrolling around. There's a couple. Miss Wright, I've spoken to you. I've spoken to a few others. Jacob, I recognize you. And then I got a good friend, Marcus. He's here as well today. Marcus, I think maybe you could give the presentation today since you and a few others spent a couple of days or a couple hours here with us. He's applied for a job with us already, so that's fantastic. So with a quick introduction, again, my name is John Buckley. I was in the U.S. Army for 33 years, active duty the whole time. I retired in 2014. The absolute worst thing that I experienced in my entire life was what I call military to civilian transition. I was absolutely horrible at it, and I focused solely on getting a job. I applied 155 times and didn't get so much as a phone call. And that doesn't even include the government jobs that I applied for. And then after I got a job, by some miracle, I struggled fitting into the civilian workforce. And the acclimation, as we call it, was very, very challenging. So I started talking to recruiters and learning. I said, "You're my enemy. How do you do your job?" I looked at it like I would in my military glasses on and said, "How do you fight this fight? Because I want to come up with a plan to beat you." And then secondly, when I got out, after I was struggling, I built what I call a perimeter of other veterans military spouses and others who had experienced the transition. And between those two efforts, it really helped me settle into the civilian workforce. But what I promised myself was that if I could, in any way, shape, or form, help other transitioning service members avoid going through what I did, that I would do what I could do. And therefore, that's why I'm here. I've been partnering with Heroes Make America since it was only a vision. And I've been here ever since. And I will tell you, I commend you for joining Heroes Make America, because it is probably one of the only programs in the country that does everything that it does to assist in the transition, give you certificates and training, and give you some wonderful coaching and mentoring all the way through the process. So with that, the ground rules haven't changed from what Rachel already said, but I would appreciate that you take any time that you can after this presentation to give me some feedback, because I do make this presentation or parts of this presentation a lot, and I want to make sure I'm giving good, accurate, helpful information. With that, let's go to the next chart. I want to spend some time talking a little bit about Textron Aviation. I want to then focus on why we hire from military community, why it's important to us, and then get into why we, not me, but my company, believes that you make great employees. And then we'll share a little bit about our solution and how we help solve that problem. Okay, next chart, please. So Textron Aviation, go to the next one.
Here at Textron Aviation, we don't just open the skies. We create opportunity. For more than 9 decades, Textron Aviation has been inspiring professionals just like you to explore, to soar into the next step of their careers with confidence, and to be part of something bigger, inspiring the future of flight for generations to come. As part of Textron Aviation's iconic brands, you'll encounter nearly every type of career path. But no matter where your journey takes you, you'll be surrounded by incredible teams who are there to support you. With education assistance, flight training, bonuses, and internal opportunities to change roles, we'll support you at every turn. Here, our values are not just words we say, but shared beliefs we strive to embody every day. We believe that individuality creates value. Quality is backed by honesty. Working together sparks innovation. And that you will carry our legendary reputation forward. We reward great work and believe in your potential to be part of the next generation of Textron Aviation leaders. Your career is not a destination, but a journey that will take you to unimaginable heights. Let your career take flight at Textron Aviation. The sky awaits.
So as you heard in the presentation, we've been around for 9 decades. Cessna and Beechcraft were established as companies in Wichita, Kansas, less than 10 years after Orville and Wilbur Wright put the first airplane in the sky. So we have been around here for a very, very long time. It's about 10 years ago that Textron Aviation purchased both companies here in Wichita, Kansas, and became one. So we have 4 major campuses here in Wichita, Kansas, where we manufacture the airplanes. Next chart, please. We make jets, we make turbos, we make pistons. So we make them all. We lead the country right now in the numbers of airplanes that we sell annually compared to other peer companies across the world, quite frankly. We also have a special missions and defense business, or a separate company. We focus on U.S. defense. We focus on foreign military sales and their defense. And then our special missions basically takes the airplanes that we have in the sense of the manufacturing component, and we modify them for special missions. So we may modify the plane and an exterior door so that UPS can use it to fly out to islands and deliver packages, or whatever the case may be. But we also have a global service and support section of the business that you're going the wrong way. You're like way way
Sorry
ahead.
about that, John. My computer glitched on me. I'm getting back to the correct slide. So I do apologize.
One back. And we do have a global service and supply chain, I should say, to support the manufacturing and the sales and the aftermarket sales. Okay, now we can go to the next chart. So I think it's really important to understand what drives the business, and it is the vision. And it's supported by a very clear and succinct mission, but then the values, I think, and these are the employee expectations, and they're really not different than anything you've done in the military. They're not unique, but they're very simple and basic, and more importantly, they're truly lived every single day in what we do. And I think the military and military experience and military culture fits into these values very, very easily. Next chart, please. So I talked about manufacturing. You can see it right in the center of everything. I mentioned 4 separate campuses in Wichita, Kansas. We've got a small facility in Independence, Kansas, about an hour to the southeast of us. That's where a lot of our special missions and defense airplanes are manufactured. But the 4 locations that we have in Wichita, one does interior, one does the jets, and one does the pistons. And then the third one does the refined manufacturing of tools and special components that we need. We do make a fuselage of one line of aircraft, and we do wire harnesses down in Chihuahua, Mexico. Columbus, Georgia, we make the propellers. That's right outside the front gates of Fort Benning. And then in Saginaw, Michigan, they have a small campus over in Monroe, Washington as well, is Aero Motion, and they manufacture, like our one campus in Wichita, they really do a lot of refined manufacturing of special items, special tools, precision types of machinery that we need. Next chart, please. As I mentioned, we do have a global parts distribution. So of course we sell the airplane, and then we have a huge aftermarket division we'll talk about in the next chart. But to support that huge aftermarket division, we've got to have a very healthy global parts distribution program. And that's exactly what we have with these facilities. I would say in the 2025, 95% of everything we ship was same day shipping. So that's a rather impressive result. And we were very reactive and responsive getting parts out to all of these various locations, and then subsequently it keeps going out to our service units that we'll talk about in the next chart. So maybe a little hard to see the color coding, but the 10 dots that you may see that are black in the United States, and then there are some in Europe, and there's some out in Australia and in Asia, very few black dots, but we own those facilities. We hire those aircraft mechanics. Our customers will bring their airplanes back to those facilities. So we're looking for AMP licensed mechanics, advanced avionics technicians, as well as structural mechanics. And then we have a managerial cell. And then, of course, there's at least one person that's in those facilities that does parts distribution and supports the global supply chain down to the actual mechanic. We have mobile service units. Those are the blue dots. You can see a lot more of those in the United States. So, of course, we will travel to the customer's airplanes if they are not or are incapable of bringing them to one of our company-owned service centers. And then the maintenance lines, and we, those are our employees in the mobile service units. The maintenance line stations and the authorized service facilities, those are not our employees. Those are not our facilities, but we do get parts to them. We do train them. We do certify them so that they're repairing our aircraft in that regard. Next chart, please. So I'm sharing all of the different brands or logos that you may be familiar with that make up Textron Aviation. So I mentioned several different companies. The one I have not mentioned is True Simulation. So True is down near Tampa in the city of Lutz, Florida, and they make simulators for both fixed wing and rotor wing. They just got their rotor wing simulator aligned and approved by the FAA, and so now they're manufacturing that. And then I did not cover Able Aerospace, They're located in Mesa, Arizona. They do a lot of CNC work. So we bring in structural components of airplanes and helicopters into that facility, and they basically do all the CNC work necessary to get them back out to the airplane from whence they came so that they can fly the airplane again. So there's a lot of good work down there in Mesa, Arizona. I went down there for a tour a couple of months ago, and I said, hey, that looks like a hook on the back of an airplane. They said, that's right. That's a Navy tail hook. So even the Navy has a contract, and they send their tail hooks there, and Able Aerospace will repair them and get them back out to the ships so that the airplanes can use them and land. Next chart, please.
There is something magical about the power of flight. Freedom, adventure, endless possibilities. The sky truly is the limit. We're passionate about our creations and the opportunities they bring. Beechcraft, Cessna, symbols of innovation, inspiration, and imagination. Renowned aircraft serving a wide range of missions for customers in more than 170 countries. To some, they're tools of operation. For others, they're time machines. Either way, they empower our customers with the freedom of flight. Our people are at the core of what we do. Legendary people creating legendary products. A skilled team that has produced more than half of all general aviation aircraft in the world. And when those famed Beechcraft and Cessna brands joined forces in 2014, we became Textron Aviation, a perfect pairing of people and products. More clean sheet designs, more product investments, more capabilities, more support for our customers. New creations, new upgrades, 19 product announcements in the past 10 years alone. The future is bright, and we're just getting started. We're refining new ideas, bringing concepts to reality, all with a continual focus on excellence and quality. And as the Beechcraft and Cessna brands approach 100 years of ingenuity, the best is yet to come. At Textron Aviation, we're shaping the way people fly, today and tomorrow.
So the one thing about that video, and I struggle with it when I see it, is, I can't afford an airplane. I certainly couldn't, right? I mean, personally, as much as I would like to, my wife says, you will never get a pilot's license because she doesn't trust me. But the point really is, and what's not said, is behind all of the fantastic outcomes that you see are people, and the people that we hire that do the work. Interestingly enough, is that the Department of Labor requires contracted companies like ours, and there's thousands of them in the United States, that 5.2% of new hires are supposed to be protected veterans. For the last 5 years, we've been over 12%. And when you add up all the military affiliated people in our company, we're at 15%. So again, I go back to the values, but I also go back to this great work that we're doing. 15% of people in military experience, that's a fantastic demographic. So you need to join and make it 17% by the end of 2026. I'm sharing this chart with you because Textron Aviation is one business in a series of sister business units that make up a company called Textron. So imagine us, Textron Aviation is a division, Textron would be our core. And so you can look across the line of the major companies that we have as sister business units. Bell Flight. Bell, it makes helicopters. Bell has the contract to replace all the Army Blackhawks. So the MV-75 is being made by Bell. The fuselage for the MV-75 will be built here in Wichita, Kansas, before it's shipped to Texas to be built completely and then taken and delivered to the Army. But if you look across that chart, you can see some of the items that we make. We make a lot of the items that you'll see on an airport other than an airplane. I'm not talking about Textron Aviation, I'm talking about Textron, and in case Textron Systems. But we also do ship-to-shore connectors. We do unmanned ship-to-shore connectors. We have the Aerosonde and some other unmanned flying machines. And then we've got a company called Pipistrel who does a lot of the electrical type aircraft developments, and we're getting ready to move them to the United States. Right now, they're based out of Switzerland and Germany. But we've got a variety. And I share that because if you join the company, Textron Aviation, and for whatever reason you need to relocate and we don't have an opportunity, when you add up all these companies in Textron, you can stay in the Textron family. And so I just want you to make sure that you understand that if you're with Textron Aviation, you're in Textron and you can join the Textron family. Next chart, please. So why do we hire from our military community? Let's go to the next chart. First and foremost, there is a need. I mentioned, that we hire a lot of people, right? We only make up 15% of this company, but we're constantly, like every other company, looking for new employees. Whether we're growing, whether we're changing, we're adapting, we're being agile in the technology that we need, or we just have turnover, because manufacturing can be a really difficult life. So there's always a need to hire somebody. Why not also look into the military? Number two, there's a requirement. As I mentioned, Department of Labor has a federal requirement. If you have National Guard or reservists serving with you, you have commitments that are outlined in the employee support of the Guard and Reserves, but our customers expect it as well. And then there's a corporate responsibility. We're a publicly traded company. So then there is a benefit as well, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but we see military veterans as a tremendous benefit to the company because of their talent, because of their leadership abilities and skills, because of the technical acumen that they bring to the workforce, along with the strong work ethic, and then being a member of a team and being comfortable working as a member of the team. Next chart. We've kind of taken our own little poll, and it's very consistent with what the Institute of Veterans and Military Family identified. These are some skill sets that you bring to the table that are irreplaceable. Whether you are a junior E4 or E5, you were probably in a leadership role. Maybe just two people, maybe a small team of 4 or 5, but you've been a leader. If you're more senior, you've been leading almost your entire career. We consider it to be a leadership laboratory if you've served in the military. You've got the ability to manage multiple simultaneous tasks and succeed at them all. You're very agile. If you think about it, you've got an MOS or you got an AFSC or a rating depending on your service, but probably 50% of your day is doing something else, another skill that is unrelated to your MOS. So we see your agility and your adaptability to change. You're also very committed to compliance. You have to follow safety protocols every single day. They get so embedded in what you do in a day that you tend to forget that. I would highly recommend you take a good look back at your resume and see if you've got something in there about safety, because that's something that's really important to us, and you live it every day. And then you've got a very entrepreneurial mindset, so it fits perfectly into this labor force. Next chart. And these are the 10 things that our supervisors came up with. These are not necessarily things that can be written in a resume, but these are certainly things that we will be poking at you when we do an interview. And we want to see and hear your stories so that we can understand how many of these things you can bring to the table. So these are very important things, and I think you would see that you meet every one of these. Next chart, please. Why is it so hard? Did we skip through the video? Or maybe not.
I don't think so. I know you have, I think,
Oh,
two more coming up before the end of the
okay.
presentation.
Yeah,
but
I see it. I'm sorry. Yeah,
you're
so
good.
we have to understand why it's so hard, and in some cases you don't understand it either. And I'm not going to spend as much time here as I do when I'm giving the transition presentation, but I want to touch on a few high points. So let's go to the next chart. It starts out with the fact that the Department of Defense is responsible for you. However, the Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as the Department of Labor, really provide the majority of the information that goes into TAP and the TAP class that you receive. And so there is what I call the tragedy of the commons. How do you fit all of this stuff into 1 week? A whole lot of stuff is left on the cutting edge floor. So, there's a lot of information that you don't necessarily learn, and what you do learn is only superficial. But there's a lot of information that's being shared within a week. So it really exacerbates the seams that are existent in these 3 different departments. So that's where it really starts. Next chart. But these are what I call your transition barriers. There are 10 of them. I've done a lot of research in this area, and I could spend an hour on each and every single one of these, to include come back to you and tell you here are some things that a company or you yourself can do to help overcome them. But the one I want to focus on initially is what I call the communication and culture gap. And so that plays a big factor in your challenge when you look for and apply for a job. But then it becomes even worse. I call it the culture clash when you get into the civilian workforce. So you're in a tribal society today where success and survival of the team far outweighs any individual. And then when you come into the civilian workforce, you're coming into a very individual, independent type of a workforce that is foreign to you. So although there's team and teamwork, it is not as cohesive as what we are used to in the military. They also don't train to time. I'm sorry, they do not train to standard necessarily. Yes, they achieve standards and they have high standards, but they train to time. It's 3:30, time to go home. Oh, wait, we got all this stuff. It's 3:30, I'm done. Now there is overtime and there's a way to compensate people, but it's not necessarily the same culture. In addition, there's another time factor you've got to be aware of. Number one, when you leave the military, Uncle Sam is going to stop paying you at some point in time. The business is not going to make a hiring decision based on your timeline. I've had numerous people apply and say, I got to have an answer by Friday because Monday I get my last paycheck and that's it. Well, we're not going to make a decision and we're not going to expedite our decision based on that. So worrying about your timeline is your responsibility. Therefore, you have to apply much earlier to get a job secured, plan some terminal leave, and maybe you can align it so that you can start to work during the terminal leave or around the time that you're going to get your final check and your ETS. Lack of credentials. You've obviously noticed that because that's why you're in Heroes Make America. You're getting certificates. You're probably not learning a whole heck of a lot because you've been doing it for your entire military career, but you're kind of learning it in a civilian facility, and now you're going to get that certificate. So you will be able to make that, but many of your peers will not, and they will not be able to get their jobs. The AMP license is a great one to look at because in many cases, those aircraft mechanics have the skills and experience necessary. They just don't have the time and the ability, and the Air Force or the Army or the Navy doesn't give you that opportunity to get the AMP license. You got to take your own initiative. But through Heroes Make America, that's going to help reduce that. Again, I can go through each and every one of those, but the biggest one to understand, as I said, is the communication and culture gap. 94% of the American population never served a day in their life. When you consider how many people are in today's workforce, you look at that 6% of people who did serve in the military, less than half are in that workforce. So it comes out to about 97 to 97.5% of the U.S. labor force never served a day in their life. So you need to make an assumption that the recruiter, the HR representative, the hiring manager, the supervisor, and everybody in between did not serve in the military. And why is that important? Because they will not understand you. They will not be able to read your military resume. They will not understand your titles. They will not understand the words you use. They will not understand your culture. They will be incapable of connecting the dots between your MOS or AFSC or rating to the needs that they have in their job descriptions. So it's incumbent upon you to understand that and do what you can to help close that gap. And that's why people like me exist. Next chart, please. I think if you look at the transition barriers, and we'll refine the numbers after 2025, has been really studied. But right now in 2024, you can see that the Employment rate, meaning the numbers percentage-wise of veterans getting jobs, was better than their non-veteran peers. However, underemployment was terrible, meaning you're a very senior non-commissioned officer doing E1's work, right? Yeah, I can do it. I can get money, but you're going to be very dissatisfied and you're going to want to move as soon as possible. So companies won't hire you in many cases. And when they misunderstand your resume because they never served, they may hire you and then see that you're well overqualified. Turnover was high and retention was poor. And a lot of those two statistics, the last two, are directly related to the communication and culture gap, especially in the acclimation phase. You get into the workforce and you say, man, this is different. I don't feel comfortable. This company's all messed up. And you say, I'm leaving. And you go to another company. And then in a couple of days, you'll say, you know what? This company's all messed up. It's a company. They don't know what they're doing. I don't fit in. And you're not going to realize that there's a little bit of work you got to do on your end to acclimate into the workforce. And that's where the veteran peers will come in to help. So when you start looking for a company, look for a company that has an employee resource group around its veterans. That'll be a very powerful tool for you to settle into the workforce. Next chart, please. As I said, it's a communication and culture gap, but it's also that what people refer to, and it's very simply titled. I think there needs to be a new catchy title to it, but it's really called transition stress. Not to, consider that everybody's trying to pigeonhole you into, oh, you got post-traumatic stress. It's not the same, but quite frankly, it can manifest itself to look a lot like post-traumatic stress. But acclimation can be very, very debilitating. When you get into an environment where you feel like you're an outsider and you have nobody to turn to, you misunderstand words and phrases and directions and timing, and you're like, well, we don't have the mission done, but everybody's left because it's 3:30. And to top it all off, there's a lot of misperceptions about you. When you think about 97.5% of the American population never served, where did they come to their conclusions about you? From TV and movie. Okay, so their perception of you is you all have post-traumatic stress, you all have traumatic brain injury, you all need to have a checklist or an SOP, you will do only what you're told to do, you won't do anything more, and you won't do it unless you're told to do it. I mean, there's all sorts of misperceptions of you, so don't feed that. You have to understand that that's what Americans think of you. They love you. They'll thank you on Veterans Day, but they don't understand you. Next chart. So this is what we've done to try to solve these problems. This is Textron Aviation's solution to the issue. Let's go to the next chart.
Textron Aviation is proud to welcome those who've served our country. For veterans stepping into civilian life, we offer a meaningful mission, a career with purpose, and a team that's got your six.
Regardless of the uniform that you wear, the advantages of working at Textron Aviation is the diversity in career. Once you get your foot in the door, you can then grow into management and become successful.
I find it really rewarding when I see a veteran land a job here at Textron Aviation and then become the star of their team, which happens quite often.
Textron Aviation supports any goal I have, whether I want to become a manager, whether I want to get a new degree to learn a new skill, whether I want to try a few different jobs.
As you leave your service, a lot of us are looking for what's the next thing. So working for Textron Aviation, they'll give you a sense of purpose.
Everybody here treats me according to how much effort I put in, and they respect me for my service, and they give me the opportunity to do things the way that I want to do them.
The culture here at Textron Aviation is similar to the military as far as mission essential. Everybody works as a team.
I especially feel a sense of camaraderie here at Textron. Out of the 5 planners that I work with, 4 of us served 20 plus years in the military.
We get paid well for what we do. And like in the military, if you perform the way you're supposed to perform, you will get compensated for that.
There's no other company that matches the care for its veterans as Textron Aviation does. It makes me love this company even more.
Get your foot in the door, get a mentor, and from there, there's endless opportunities.
At Textron Aviation, you're not starting over, you're starting strong. Because with us, your military skills don't get overlooked, they get elevated. Join fellow veterans who are driving change and achieving legendary results. Your next mission awaits.
So we do value our military veterans and our military community, and it starts at the top. Our CEO happened to be an Army aviator for 10 years before he joined Textron Aviation, and now he is the CEO. So it kind of makes it easy in the sense of his knowledge of the contributions you can make to the company, but also to understand the challenges. Next chart, please. We do ask our senior leaders to be involved, and they do put an emphasis on this, hiring of military veterans, supporting SkillBridge internships. They are very active and advocate for the military community hiring. We also have special and some unique resources, putting money into building that video that you just saw. I mean, like if you talk to any company, you know that's expensive. But they gave us the resources necessary to let our veterans tell their stories. We try to be unique and responsive to the Department of War and its changes in SkillBridge internships. And so we've created some new and unique opportunities for SkillBridge. And then we want our senior leaders to educate and inform junior leaders and other employees about the importance of this and why we put such an effort into it and what they can do to contribute. And then finally, we do have a very unique and very powerful targeted marketing and communications effort that we just begun in 2026. Next chart, please. We also have matchmakers. So myself and Josiah, we are not recruiters, although we work alongside of our recruiters. So I told you beforehand that I looked at the recruiters as my enemy. Well, now I am sleeping with the enemy. And I am learning everything from them, and I know what their needs are. And since I am very capable of understanding your skills, experiences, all I need to know is what you're interested in, and I can make the right connections, as can Josiah. Although I have to say he is unfortunately from the U.S. Air Force. He did do 22 years in military service. He is a licensed airframe and power plant mechanic, and he did work as an airframe and power plant mechanic in the civilian workforce before he joined me. He is now predominantly the program manager for our SkillBridge opportunity. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. But we are unencumbered by the recruiting from a day-to-day perspective. Our responsibilities are to find you, to coach you, to mentor you, to help orient you on the right job. And then we educate, coach, teach, and mentor the recruiter and the hiring manager, helping you translate. So we're trying to fill in that communication and culture gap that I talked about. Next chart. We also have an employee resource group. So we do the coaching and mentoring before you come in the door. Our VetCom, or our Veteran Employee Resource Group, they do the mentoring after you come into the door. So they have a series of mentors. They host monthly meetings where they bring in the VA, for example, and you can learn more information about the disability and compensation procedures and methods, about the PACT Act, about benefits associated with the GI Bill, you name it, whatever it is, we bring them to you. But they do a whole lot more to include participating in our veteran communities in and around Wichita, Kansas, or wherever they're located. We also have a very aggressive SkillBridge program. We have 3 primary pathways. The first one is for junior enlisted folks, E5s and below, who've got a lot of experience, but not enough to necessarily get you a pilot's license, so to speak. And so we're going to bring you in. We're going to give you 8 to 12 weeks of training on a specific manufacturing skill so that you're guaranteed a job when you graduate. We've got 3 people in the program right now. The first so-called student is going through the program, and he will graduate on the 4th of March, and he will have his first day on the job as a full-time employee on the 6th of March. So it's rather impressive. The second pathway is for aircraft maintainers. So if you're advanced aircraft mechanic, to include a licensed A&P mechanic, avionics tech, or a structural mechanic, we have unique skill bridge programs for you. And then if you're really anything else, but we tend to focus on the third pathway is typically focused on those with high college degrees that are required for like some of the higher level supply chain jobs, the engineering jobs, lawyers, those kinds of things that where you're typically needing a higher degree. And then we're the first to create a airframe and power plant certification training program partnering with Heroes Make America. And we're the first ones to do it with the U.S. Air Force installation as its main partner. Although Fort Riley isn't too far away, and we're starting to get people to travel here to take the program and graduate. The strength about our program is we do have 6 DMEs right here in the area, so there's literally no waiting. You finish your class, you do your last test, and guess what? Your O&P is done the very next week, and you have your license, and you can start work that very same day. Next chart, please. I'm not going to get into this too much, but we do have a unique marketing and communications program. We have a special, she's really a recruiting communications expert, and then she works with the Textron Aviation marketing communications teams. And so we're really doing a lot in this space, advertising in some new spaces we've never been before, getting me out in front of audiences, working with exhibits around the world, getting me into conferences and so on and so forth, just to spread the word. And we've already doubled the number of applicants that we received in 2020 for the month of January, February. In 2025, we've already doubled the number of applicants that we've gotten, military applicants that is. So it's so far pretty effective. Next chart, please. There are 14,000-ish employees around the world. We have about 11,000 right here in Kansas, in Wichita, that is. We have on average about 150 daily roles. You can see the different career fields that we have jobs almost every day. We have jobs for each one of these. I would tell you that the manufacturing and the maintenance are usually, and our operations are the biggest ones in the sense of numbers, but we'll find some opportunities in every one of those things. Next chart, please. And again, I'm going to kind of pause here to see if there's any questions. I've got a few more charts, but I want to give you enough time to ask whatever question may be on your mind. But again, I want to show you what our vision and mission is and why this is important to us, and maybe go to the last chart, which highlights the values and give you a little bit more, just one more chart, not to the video yet, but there you go. Just so you can see what those values are and put a little bit more meat behind it. Any questions right now at all about Textron Aviation?
I don't see any in the chat, but I would encourage folks to come off of mute if you've got a question as well, or throw them in there and I'll read them for you if you are shy and are a passive participant. You're just incredibly thorough, John.
I guess so.
They're saving your information so they can have those individualized conversations.
Well, let's hope. The last chart has a QR code. You can take a picture and connect with me on LinkedIn, and gives you my phone number and address. But while you're thinking, come up with a question during this last video. Go ahead and let's go to the last video there, Rachel.
Textron Aviation doesn't just create exceptional aircraft. We inspire the journey of flight. And nothing makes us prouder than seeing people learn to spread their wings. To fly is to feel the purest form of freedom. To push yourself to new heights. To become a legend in the sky. There's nothing quite like seeing the entire world in front of you. And then conquering it. So what are you waiting for? Join our team and help build the future of flight. Come feel the pride.
I see Clint's question. No, Don't know that there's any age limit for these programs. SkillBridge, there's obviously more or less affiliation with the military, kind of a limit. You must be on active duty to join the SkillBridge opportunities, but nothing else. Everything else is dependent upon skill and experience, and sometimes location is an interest if you're not in the area where we have the job. I mean, but other than that, that's the only things that we evaluate. What specifically is on your mind there, Clint?
Oh, I see him up there. I think he's
Huh?
contemplating coming off of mute. He
Okay.
might be working on dropping it in the chat. Oh, there he is.
There you go.
So I'm a veteran, I'm out of the Marine Corps and the Army. And so I was wondering if there's an age limit or veterans are allowed to apply for SkillBridge or the other programs.
SkillBridge is a Department of War program, and you must be on active duty at the time that you apply for SkillBridge. And to participate, you are in an unpaid status from the company's perspective, but the Department of War is still paying you. And the goal is, in the last 6 months of your military service, you're being trained in a skill that will become your job, so that when you fully ETS or terminate your service, you can start work as a full-time employee getting paid. That's the only limitation that we have. Other than that, no, you can join regardless of your service, regardless of that you were a Marine at one point. I mean, I can overlook that. We actually, our chief lawyer is a Marine, but there is no age limit that would violate Department of Labor policies. We have a program for you to get a pilot's license. If you're an employee, we will reduce the cost for you to go through the training. We have a flying club right here on the same campus that I'm sitting on today, and they will help you get your pilot's license. All you need to do is, and you could be a family member of one of our employees. So SkillBridge is the only one that would be a concern if you're not active duty today. Other than that, there's no other concerns.
Well, and I'll chime in too, Clint, just from the Heroes perspective. So Heroes Make America, while we are a DoD SkillBridge program, our programs are also open to veterans. So our programs, you can come in under SkillBridge, or you do not have to participate as a SkillBridge individual. So you can come in as a veteran, a military spouse, guard, reservist. So if you were looking at one of like the Heroes programs to maybe train and go into a career with Textron Aviation, you could definitely participate in our program as a veteran.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then I saw another one in here from Matthew, John.
Yep,
how large is that
too.
facility in Michigan?
It's a relatively small facility in comparison to the ones that I'm sitting in. They do not build airplanes there, but they do some special tooling and fabricating or making parts, very, very highly engineered parts. I would say from a numbers perspective, it's probably around 50 employees. It's relatively small. And then they have a branch out in Washington, and I want to say there's about 25 people out in Washington. They're both relatively small, but we do have opportunities every once in a while in Michigan. I think there's a couple open today. I think one is supply chain and the other is a program manager, but don't quote me on that. It's been a couple of hours since I was on the career stage.
But it's a great opportunity to remind you guys to make sure that you're connecting with John and or Josiah after the call today if you have some of those more specific questions to engage with them about those opportunities. And John, while we're waiting on maybe some more questions to populate in the chat, I know you've been, kind of working within the manufacturing sector for a little while, but I would love to hear your perspective in terms of, we know that we still battle the perception around what manufacturing looks like and careers in the industry. So thinking back to that initial transition you made when you came out of the military and you went into that first kind of manufacturing industry career, what was one of the biggest changes in perception that happened for you?
Well, certainly I would say the biggest one, and I think one that everybody sees when they come into these facilities is, oh my gosh, it's clean. It looks very, from an organizational standpoint, it looks very much like a military motor pool, right? I mean, You walk between the yellow lines. You have to have your safety, gear on, whether it's your helmet, right? You have to have eye protection in. So safety, very, very safety conscious. I think I was impressed with that as well. I always thought that manufacturing was dirty and smelly, and you just did what you needed to do and go home for the day. But actually, it's a very enjoyable place and a very comfortable place to work. And there are just a handful of locations based on the type of work and the machinery that they work on that it may be hot or uncomfortable, but they're going to tell you that in the job description. But otherwise, I was very, very, I still get surprised every time I go into the facility. Very organized, very safely arranged, lots of safety consciousness. The environmental concern and interest is the same way. Lots of communication. But the other thing that really strikes me, and I think this is one of the issues that leads to the cultural misunderstandings, is that they don't have leaders, the numbers of leaders like we have in the military. And what I mean by that is, we have a commander at the 05 level that has a command sergeant major, a commander at the, at the captain level with a first sergeant, and then a platoon leader and a platoon sergeant. Well, imagine taking out those leaders, right? And just have squad leaders out there in the manufacturing floor. And that's what we have. So you don't have that structural component to it. It's actually very flat in its organizational structure, which really enables it to move very agile wise. But the misunderstanding we have, even in the supply chain world, I get these people, sergeants and some junior officers, and say, well, I want to be a supply chain leader. Well, guess what? We don't really have supply chain leaders per se. Everybody's a leader because we're such a flat, distributed organization, and that's just the way it is in the private sector. They're not going to be, structural levels all the way down where you have to have a senior person and the next senior person and the next senior person. It just doesn't happen that way. So go ahead, ask the question, Rachel.
Sorry, John, I was going to chime in. I've had the pleasure of sitting in a lot of your training sessions that you do, especially when you talk about your transition. And I think you talking about leaders in that moment kind of led right into this question I had. So, we talk about people getting out of the military and wanting to go directly into leadership positions. And one of the things you talk about as part of your transition is, what are your priorities, right? So, we think about, we're getting out of the military, and do we want to continue to, work long hours? Because in manufacturing, if you're a leader and somebody doesn't show up for work, you might be the one who's getting the call that, you've got staff that aren't there. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about that conversation that you have, right? So addressing those priorities, what matters to you as you transition out, and how is that going to align with that next role?
Yeah, I would tell you, and I emphasized it a couple of times, that the company's values and its culture are probably the most important things to look at. I know a few people who their number one focus is, I want more money. I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25. Well, if you want to go make the money, then I don't think you're going to be a very happy person, because you're going to be working very, very long hours, and you're not going to be doing what you love to do. Instead, I think the kind of the balance you have to find is, how can I get a outside that has adequate pay, but it gives me the opportunities to advance and grow, but more importantly, have a life outside of the military. Outside of work. When we're in the military, we live by the motto, embrace the suck, right? And what does that really mean? That means regardless of where you're assigned, whether it's at a really bad military base or installation, or you're overseas somewhere, we have to make it comfortable, because that's what we've been given. When you take off that uniform, you do not need to embrace the suck. So my priorities were doing something I love doing, and getting enough money to enjoy life. I'm not in it for a bunch of money, and I would tell you that most of the people that I talk to are the same way. But what then I found out, and what's really interesting, is I tremendously underestimated the annual review of salaries and bonuses, because despite my interest of saying, I'm not going to go in, I'm not really in it for the money. I just need a little bit to, buy the beer that I need on the weekends and travel a little bit to see my grandkids and whatnot. That's all I really wanted. Every single year, based on our performance, we get reviewed and we get a pay raise, or we get a bonus, or we get both, depending on how well you perform. And what I see routinely are the military folks getting both, and they're getting advanced. The duration of service to a company far outweighs the number of years of a non-veteran, number one, if you find comfort in it. And then number two, economically, meaning the money that you make as a military person, the veterans are making anywhere from 12 to 15% more than their non-veteran peers. So my message to you is go find something that you love to do and you have fun doing it. If you come in thinking I want to be a VP of a company, you're not going to do very well because you won't really understand how a business operates. Where do we and how do we really make the money? And where are all the different pain points that could prevent you from making that money? And instead, come in to do something that you love to do. You'll be noticed. And probably within 5 years, then you'll be the VP, because now you understand how it operates. So don't try to make that transition directly into a really, really difficult, complex job because you want to be a millionaire. Find the job where you love doing what you want to do, learn how the business operates, learn who the real leaders are, learn and meet your peers. And before you know it, you'll be that person that you thought you wanted to be 5 years from now.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about pay, that's the importance of if you're transitioning, making sure you've sat down and done a budget, right? You need to know what your left and right limits are so that as you're seeking a role, you're getting something that at least, gets you to where you need to be, and ideally better off then. But you've got to at least know what that bottom number is, based on expenses and everything. So make a budget. You should be doing it, but make a budget so you know where
you make a budget. You can also make some assumptions if you have some injuries. You can make some assumptions about what your disability and compensation might be. And if you're retiring, you certainly should know exactly what you're going to get in retirement pay. And so what I did, of course, I retired and I got some disability, right? I was able to reduce that from that top line. So that budget that Rachel's talking about, I'm just throwing a number out there. I needed $100K for a budget. Well, guess what? When I reduced the amount of money I'm getting paid for my retirement, and then I reduced the amount of money I'm getting in disability and comp, I didn't need that much. So I was really able to find that job I love doing. And that's what I would tell you will make a big difference in your life. While doing one of the training programs, can you use your GI Bill? So Clint, the simple answer is yes. The more complex answer is, does the training program and is it certified and approved by the VA for a GI Bill? So it's not really your choice. It's the VA's choice and the company or school or whatever. So the A&P certification training program that we partner with Heroes Make America is not currently GI Bill eligible. But the applications are in because it's a brand new school and we're trying to get that certified and validated. But yes, the simple answer is yes. The more difficult answer.
I would say definitely reach out to Heroes. Let us know which program you're interested in because like our virtual training pathways are GI Bill approved. So yeah, absolutely reach out and we can give you more information on how each of our program pathways are funded as well. So, and then I know we're right at time. I did have one other question I was going to ask. So I had gotten a question. John, I know you yourself do not have an aviation background, right? So do you see a lot of non-aviation transitioning veterans get jobs with Textron Aviation, and what types of jobs are you seeing a lot of them go into?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, the only thing I knew about an airplane was, hey, over there, that's the door you jump out of and you better have your parachute on. That's the only thing I knew about an airplane. The only other thing I knew is I did not like helicopter pilots because they always put me down 2 kilometers away from where my objective was. Other than that, I see probably anywhere from 60 to 70% of our military folks are not aviation maintenance or aviation career experienced. to include our supply chain folks, to include our mechanics. I think the job that Marcus applied for, there's no need to be an aviation maintenance person, although we do orient on, do you have some mechanical inclinations, right? That's about it. So I would say over 50% easily of the military veterans that we hire are not aviation maintenance or maintenance experienced. Certainly being around the aviation, so if you're in Army aviation, even if you're not a pilot or a mechanic, if you were a crew chief or something like that, that could help you in certain areas, but generally speaking, you do not need to be an aircraft maintainer or an aircraft specialist to make it at Textron Aviation. Again, I was an infantryman. So
Perfect.
Here's one real quick, Rachel, if I could.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
you had my contact information up there for a long time. I can help you. If you have a job that you're interested in, before you apply, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help assess with you if this is the job you want to pursue. Number two, I can look into the inside of our applicant tracking system and tell you where we are in the process to help you orient. Do I need to apply, or is it too late to apply? Number three, I can help you with the resume before you apply. You better put your flak jacket on, because I will be brutally honest and help you get a resume that's going to help you get the job. If you get the job interview invite, I will give you some coaching. I will give you an hour of my time to help you prepare for that very critical conversation that you're going to have. That's more important than the resume, by the way. And then if you get the job offer, I'd be more than happy to schedule time with you to help you come up with a negotiating strategy if in fact you need it. So you've got my number, you got my email address. If you're interested in a job with Textron or Textron Aviation preferably, I will see and do what I can to help, and I'm helping Heroes Make America folks all the time.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. So first and foremost, John, thank you so much to you for taking the time out of your day to be with us here today. Thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you have done to help bring Textron Aviation on board as a partner of the Heroes Make America program. We truly appreciate that. So as a reminder, guys, check out the Textron Aviation career website. Connect with John and Josiah. He just said that he would make himself available to you. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Okay. He brings a wealth of experience and knowledge and wants to help support you. Make sure you're following Heroes if you're not already on our LinkedIn channels. We dropped our contact information for our team in earlier into the chat. So connect with us as well. And then we hope you'll join us for our next event, which is not until March 18th. But we will feature Johnson & Johnson at that time. So I know we're a few minutes over. So thank you all for joining us today, and let us know how we can be of service to you in the future. So thank you again, John. We really appreciate you.
Rachel,
Yes,
can you go back one slide?
I sure can.
Okay.